What's going on? Today I want to walk you through the tool that I've been building, mulligan.aldrazi.dev, specifically the playtester part of it. There's a lot of things that are Moxfield-like. There's a lot of things that we built specifically for cEDH that are a little bit different. So I kind of will walk everyone through how to kind of use this to the best of their abilities. Whether you're goldfishing hands, whether you're trying new things out, for your list, I think we do a lot of really cool things here. So as you can see, the overall layout looks very much like Moxfield. One of the key differences is this pod drop down. If you're on desktop, you can press P to open and close this. This is kind of originally what the site set out to do, was just to really help you think about mulliganing. So you can press this button or the key M to mulligan this hand, right? You might look at this and be like, maybe I don't really like this, doesn't really have a strong game plan. I might hit M, mulligan. You can kind of see the opponents are also simulated mulligan, right? So in this case, Terra's snap kept first. The Rog Thras has also snap kept. And you might kind of just keep on going through this. One cool thing that you can do is when you see opponents keep, let's say you don't really know what Terra does, click on Browse Sample Hands, and this gives you a little peek into what Terra pilots might be thinking, right? All this data here from hands comes from our friends over at Play Nice MTG. You should definitely check them out. But you can even filter. So like by default, Terra was in C2, so you're kind of seeing C2. Let's say you say, I want to see all Terra hands regardless of what seed they're in. I want to see only Terra hands that won the game. You can do that as well, and by hand size also. So let's just say you're browsing through Terra. So you might kind of look through here and be like, okay, this is pretty sweet. I don't know what's going on with the deck card stats I'll look at that. Usually there's things like inclusion rate and conversion rate. That comes from EDH Top 16. Cool. Yeah, so you essentially kind of go through this loop. If you decide, you've mulled way too many times and you just want to like redo this pod, you can essentially hit reset pod or press R and it just goes through the whole thing again. If you don't like the pod that you're seeing, maybe you want a different seat position, you're going to hit new pod, right? And this will just give you a fresh pod, fresh 7. You can also kind of choose, let's say your local meta is like very turbo bent. You can choose to influence what the deck generation is. This doesn't mean that you only see turbo decks. What's happening behind the scenes is we grab the overall meta share from EDH Top 16, and then we just crank up turbo. And let's say you want to see turbo and stacks. Specifically, that's what it does. So you'll still see mid-range lists here, but you'll see them at a much lower clip. Another thing you can do is you can force cards in your opening hand. So let's say you're play testing a certain card. Let's say you're play testing Grinding Station in this rock side list, right? And you're like, I just want to see hands that are only show me Grinding Station. Every time you mulligan or you do a new pod, you reset the pod, you'll always see that card in your starting hand, which is pretty sweet. This is good for testing new cards from new sets or just kind of evaluating before a tourney, like, do I think this card's going to perform or not, right? So you can do up to 7 cards in here, set your entire hand essentially, but I've typically found people just use 1 or 2 cards that they want to kind of just test a lot. Cool, so that's the pod setting. The other things you can do in here, which is press D to draw. This is very Moxfield-like. Press N to go to next turn. You can also simulate draw engines here. So let's say you have something like an Esper Sentinel or Ristic Study out on the battlefield. And typically in the past, if you goldfish, you just kind of like make up a random number in your head, right? And this feels like kind of bad. And this is just a little step further than that, right? Let's say you want to simulate a turn cycle. You might have a Ristic or Mystic, and they might draw you cards, right? But you don't really know. So you essentially just roll a dice. And these are rough ranges, right? So let's say you do expect it to be late game, a Ristic's out, maybe a stack war is going on. Maybe you decide the Ristic isn't a large value engine, but it's an XL, right? That gives you a bunch of cards. So you do that, and it just randomizes within the range. I think that's been pretty useful for some folks. You can add tokens just like in Moxfield as well. You can even search for cards. Let's say you're looking for an opponent's Timna to put on the battlefield. You can do that as well. It'll come up as a token. Tokens that go to the graveyard cease to exist, or any other zone for that fact. They just go away. Similar to the draw engine, you can do the same thing with treasures. So let's say you have like a Ragavan or a Smothering Tithe or a Lotho. This will do the same thing, randomize you treasure tokens. Cool. Life you have here, plus or minus. Similarly to spell table, if you press minus or plus on your keyboard, it'll also toggle that up and down. Same thing with a mana tracker here. You can go up and down by clicking. You can click the mana symbol to reset to 0. These are also bound to the keyboard too. If you press Shift and the color, so I'm pressing Shift U, you can see go up. If you hold Alt Shift U, it'll go down. On Macs, that's an option. I'm not sure what it would be on Linux. I'm assuming it's just also Alt 2. You might have to just check your specific keyboard layout. And then all of these reset when you hit next turn, as they would in a normal match game. Last one in this kind of sidebar is threats. So this is another way for you to improve your gold fishing experience, right? Like sometimes you're just trying out new hands and you're like, oh man, I'm really getting to turn 2, turn 3 wins consistently, but you're not really seeing that convert in like an actual pod. And that's probably because there's 3 other players sitting with you, right? So let's say you want to simulate what it's like to play into an opponent's board, someone who has Necro, someone who has Ristic Study, right? There's different categories you can do. So opposing value engines, opposing combo pieces, opposing stacks pieces. The combo pieces are kind of interesting. I don't really think it matters a whole lot when you're thinking about your own turn, but let's say you're playing like you're gold fishing a control list. This might be something where you want to just think through like, oh, how good is this hand? What counter spells do I really need for specific scenarios, right? Oh, opponent has Burgi. How am I supposed to think about my turn? An opponent has a Necro. How am I supposed to think about interacting, right? So I think that's what that's for. You can choose specific categories. Alternatively, you can just like click the button and you can randomly generate things, right? Okay, let's kind of look at the command zone in the hand here. All of these things you can just drag to the battlefield. There's a little snapping that happens to a grid just to make it a little bit easier. There's a lot of hotkeys that I've made here that are similar to what they are you probably are used to in other tools, but any of these you can see on the right rail here. Like if I hover and press T, it taps and untaps. I can flip the cards. X makes token copies underneath. Get rid of some of these. You can move things to hand, to graveyard, to exile, to top of library, to bottom library, etc. If you grab a bunch of cards and select them and you click and you shake them around, it puts them neatly into like a vertical pile. I'm still holding the mouse down right now. If you shake it again, it'll lay it out horizontally, right? And then there is a third shake, which is like put it back into its original place, which I'll kind of show you now. So this is first, second, third. This is how they started off. So this is just more like for you to help stay organized. Cool. What next? You'll see in your hand, there's like these 2 hotkeys. I thought about just calling this action gamble, but it just RNGs something into the graveyard from your hand. And this is just for casting wheels, right? So you can see this graveyard's ticking up. From the library, you can just drag if you want. So if you don't want to just like mill or exile, you can do that. This also has a menu, so you can play with the top hand revealed. If you're playing something like Gwenum or a Bolas' Citadel, you can kind of do that without like constantly dragging things to the battlefield to look what they are. Let's move these all. And for both the graveyard, exile, and library, you can see when you hover over it, there's kind of a little hint that you can click on it. These will all pull out a little sheet. And here you can do your standard search, right? So search by name. I think what's kind of nice as well is you can also do scroll searches in here. So right, let's look for enchantments. And this will kind of give you back anything that's enchantment. Maybe you want specifically mana values that you're looking for when you're tutoring or something. You could do that here too. And that also exists in both the graveyard and exile zone. One feature I'm kind of excited about is this hypergeometric calculator. TLDR, what this does is you get to kind of ask yourself, if I were to draw this many cards right now, what are the chances that I see something from that matches like the thing I'm interested in, right? So let's do something simple. Again, this is Scryfall notation. Looks for lands, right? Given my current library of 70 lands that are in my hand, in the graveyard, in the exile, these are the matches that are left in your library. You have a 24% chance of drawing land. You can go up and down with this, right? So let's say you have a card that gives you 3 draws, right? This is your chance of seeing a land. You can do some pretty interesting things here. I think you'll have to explore the Scryfall syntax yourself. But this, for example, is let me see my chances of drawing a mana rock, right? And a mana rock is an artifact that has the tap symbol. It has the word add, an oracle text for O, and is not a land specifically. And those all look like mana rocks. So if you drew 2 cards right now, you have a pretty good chance in rock side to see some mana rocks, which makes sense. Let's reset this. Cool. There's a couple cards that are like very specific to, that are kind of like hard-coded some functionality for. Let's look for Mana Vault. Let's look for Necro. And let's look for add-ons. Cool. So Mana Vault, typically on your turn, when you hit, let me put the Necro in my hand. Let's say you have some lands on the battlefield. If you've gone around tapping things and you press in for next turn, these things will untap, but by default, a tapped Mana Vault won't. You can toggle it here, which is like taps or untaps, but by default, things like Mana Vault, Grim Monolith, Basalt Monolith won't, which is pretty cool. It just saves you that one extra click. Cards like Necroprotons that specifically say you don't draw on your draw step. When you press in, it'll say draw skip to the Necro. Let me actually find one more card. I'll show you the Brain Freeze interaction. If you right click or do this context menu click on both Brain Freeze and Add Naus, we have these special modes. So let's do Add Naus first. This will take you to like a full screen experience. It'll take your life total, show you how many cards you've revealed, and this is your existing hand before you cast this. And you get to just keep pressing D or clicking next to reveal cards to show. And this will track both the mana value on the top right and how much life you've lost. It's pretty cool, right? And then you have two options. You can either put those cards in your hand or you can put them on the battlefield. I'll kind of show both of them. So if you put it in the hand, it gets a little crazy, right? I dump the Add Naus into the graveyard. Let's do a version where you cast it again. You can go negative life, but I kind of just like leave that up to you. Or you can just dump them all into the battlefield and they come out here nicely stacked. Brain Freeze is a little bit different. You cast Brain Freeze, you can kind of see things just go into the graveyard. And they have this little animation so you can get a quick little preview. Otherwise, you'd have to, kind of just like dig like this, which is annoying. This is also tied up storm count. So let's say you are tracking your storm count for the turn. Let's say you have some crazy storm, 24. You can run this with storm count and it'll calculate exactly how many cards you're supposed to mill for you. And it'll increment that as well. So those are two of the like custom made ones. I think there's a lot of room here to do a lot of hard coding for a lot of other cards if they have some sort of interaction that is hard to kind of like manually mimic. Reset this. If you're logged in, you have the ability to save hands. So let's say you have an interesting 7 that you want to think about keeping, you want to share with your friends, your deck Discord. You can share the puzzle. You can share the hand here. Puzzles, I kind of want to show. Let me do it from a different view. Go back here. If you go to the puzzles list up top, you can see a bunch of puzzles that have been saved, mostly by me, but I'm copying other people's puzzles. One by Amelia for the Discord. And these are essentially just like playtests that have been saved. And the way that we kind of achieve that is we have these things called save states, right? So let's go back into our original playtest. And let's say you want to like simulate a hand, right? And you're thinking from here, like, okay, how can I play this line out? It's not a real line, but we have these things called save states. So you can save slot here and you can also load it. Right now it's not loading anything, but let's say you did a whole slew of other things and you want to get back to that original state, you can just do this. This is bound to Alt-1 or Option-1 on Mac. And I give you the ability to kind of save 4 different slots. And this might be good if you're just like trying to practice some sequencing or explore some sequencing. You'll often like get to a stopping point and you'll have like, I can go one of 3 ways here. Let me go explore each one of them and be able to get back to it. Essentially, we use this as a way to kind of get back to this puzzle, right? So this is puzzle where if you click here, you get a little description. It's your turn, no lands have been played yet, and these are your opponent's tokens. So you're gonna have to somehow using all of this and your lines go through, right? So you can imagine like tapping things and you're like, oh, this is like not the thing that I was hoping to get to, right? Through whatever, I've Imperial sealed something. You go, okay, let me just reload and get back to my state and try solving again. It's pretty sweet. Not every single puzzle has this uploaded, but some of them will have a solution. I believe this specific Rockside puzzle does. And if it does have a solution, we kind of show it in here. So you can click it and expand and see the steps. You can always bring that back up by clicking this little info icon. This only exists for puzzles. So say you wanted to craft a puzzle. I have a whole video that's also showing how to do that, but that's also through the save menu, and you can save the puzzle name, a description, tell it what save slot to come out of, and then have that. I guess one last thing to kind of show is the deck page. So let's say you just want to kind of browse through the different decks that people have uploaded or the different puzzles. You can kind of do this here. This is just a directory. I sort it by number of deck lists uploaded. So here you can see Blue Farm has 25 lists, Canon has 24. You can filter this down if you're just looking for like Tivit, for example, for Esper. But once you click into one of them, you'll see all the deck lists that people have uploaded. Clicking into it like drills you down even more to show you hands that someone has saved for here. You can get different links, puzzles that people have made. So I don't think anyone's made any Blue Farm puzzles yet. Let's go back to Rocks High. You can kind of see the puzzles will show up here. So it might be a good way, like if you're a Rocks High pilot, Canon pilot, and you want to browse through all the puzzles and get a little better with the deck, this is where you would go find them. And through any of this list, you can click to view on Mox Field, or you can click playtest and it'll dump you right back in. Cool. And I think that's all the features that are worth sharing at this point. I hope you find the tool useful. You can find me on Discord. You can find me on Twitter. If you just go to eldrazi.dev, you'll see all the socials here. And hope to hear some feedback and user stories from everyone. And we can keep improving this together. Cool.